Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Pagpalayang hapon, umaga, gabi sa ating lahat. Ako si Morse Caoagas Flores. Taga-Cagayan ako sa Pilipinas, sa Norte yun. I was batch 95 sa UPLB. Batch Ennui ako sa UP Sociosoc. So I am currently working as a human rights officer with the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. It's based in Geneva. I've been based, in Geneva for the past 16 years now. I have worked with the International Labour Office. I have worked with the Interparliamentary Union, and all throughout my career, I had several experiences then with international NGOs. I can tell you that my studies in history and sociology has been the most important foundation of my career in all of its facets. So we can discuss a bit more on this one later on. I was very clear career-wise. I wanted to work with the UN. 2004 was the Rwanda genocide. First time kami nagka-TV sa bahay. It was in color. So for me, it was shocking. So pagdating ko sa UPLB, and then we had classes on ethnicity. There was a class on social stratification and all that. Yung images ng Rwanda sa akin napaka-importante. Kasi it talks about discrimination, racial discrimination, and then it was confounded with religion. Ito yung mga courses na sociology. It touches all that issues. And then at the same time, ang una kong naging tanong sa sarili ko, what can I do? That was also the first time na the United Nations was being criticized. High school pa lang ako, I was already fascinated with international relations. And I knew from the beginning, sabi ko, if I'm going to work with something na pwede kong sabihin, this is going to be my career, sabi ko, I would like to work for the United Nations. High school ako niyan. So, nung nag-sociology ako, I was doing a mapping of all the different courses sa UPLB or in the whole UP system. Tinignan ko yung mga graduates din nung different courses. Tignan ko yung mga nag-PhD, tignan ko yung mga background ng mga professors sa sociology. Sabi ko, oh my God, they've studied abroad, they published all this. So besides working for the UN, the second option I had was, as a career, was to do research. I was fascinated with research as well. Napansin ko rin na marami sa ating mga known sociologists, they have background as well in the academe. So gusto ko rin magturo. And then at the same time, I also wanted to give back to the community. So I also wanted to work for civil society organizations or NGOs in the Philippines. So yun yung nakikita kong career prospect ko nun. So I was quite clear. I know what I was doing. So unang-una, ang unang kong prioritize really was to ensure na ma-enjoy ko yung pag-aaral ko sa UP. UP Sociosoc has played that very important role. Kasi na-realize ko na pag estudyante ka lang, nag-aaral ka lang. I mean, you can have extracurricular activities in different format. Pero iba if you belong to a certain community. And that is something that you learn in sociology as well. Belonging to a community, it has challenges. It makes your life more realistic pag nasa academic ka. It resembles the society outside. So, kung ano yung napag-aaralan mo sa sociology, when you go into Sociosoc, nabavalidate mo yung pinag-aaralan mo. And for me, that was the most important. You validate what you are studying. Doon mo rin na-apply kung ano yung pinag-aaralan mo sa mga subjects mo. About leadership, social interaction, intercultural communication. Doon mo lahat na-apply. And then, that's where you learn the most important lessons as a student. Kasi doon mo ma-learn yung accountability. If you belong to an organization, get in there. Kahit wala kang position, you don't have to be a leader. You don't have to have a position to be a leader. You could just be a very good member. And then you learn from there. And then you realize na, wow, so ganito pala kahirap maging leader. Ang sarap mag-criticize, ha? Pero ang hirap pala pag ikaw yung nandun sa position. And then you have to manage people. In fact, dun ko rin na-realize na work is easy. The most difficult is managing people. You learn that in history and sociology. Many. But I should also tell you that my worst career decisions are my best decision, and I will tell you now. So, for example, I was working for this international organization. I wouldn't disclose now because it's very internal, but I was working as the Asia Pacific Regional Advocacy and Program Coordinator. And as such, I was looking after 2-3 projects that are very specific. One is on Indigenous Peoples, the other one is on women and gender, and the other one in extreme poverty. In international organizations kung minsan, yung mga funds that are allocated, earmarked specific to those programs, kung minsan, depending sa resources ng organization, kung minsan nare-realign yung mga budgets. And normally this request comes from the top. As a foot soldier, I wasn't a foot soldier already. I had the decision-making power na rin that time. Kung minsan nai-impose na lang sa'yo. And one time, I was being asked to report on some funds na ginamit sa iba, but they want me to report. Sabi ko, no, I cannot report on something na hindi ko alam kung saan ginamit. Unang-una, that's very unprofessional. Second of all, accountability. Hello. How do I mag-iimbento ako? Ganun. So sinabihan ko yung boss ko na I'm not going to report. I'm not going to lie. Ayoko maging kasangkapan dito. So nag-away kami, but I fought for my principle. Ito yung unang lessons na na-learn ko. Unang-una, there are things in life that you can compromise, but there are things in life that you cannot compromise, and the most important is your values. If you believe in transparency, if you believe in professionalism, as a person, those are the things that you cannot compromise at all. Yun ang unang worst decision, I guess, from the standpoint na nag-resign ako, but it was the best decision in my life. Kasi I knew I was standing for the right reason. And it's the right thing to do. Second decision ko, I was being moved to New York. Kasi alam mo sa UN, we have to move every 3 to 5 years. So my position was moved to New York. That time, I fall in love with somebody. So ito na yung interaction ng career or personal life. And I'm not getting any younger. So sabi ko, what should I do now? Yung partner ko, ayaw niyang mag-move ng New York. Kasi ang buhay niya, it's always been Swiss. Tapos sabi ko naman, in sociology, you learn about consultations. You just don't take decisions on your own. You're not living on your own anymore. You have a family, you have a partner. So sabi ko, can we talk about this? So tinignan namin yung advantages and disadvantages. And we realized na, New York is offering career prospect fantastically kasi it's parang natural course yan ng career sa UN. Pero I knew I won't be happy kasi I would be there on my own. And ang una kong na-realize ulit, you could be up all the way up there, but you won't be happy. Sa mga kabataan, yung bagong members natin na nakikinig, you will be going at some point in that direction. By the end of the day, life is all about decisions. And doon mo ma-realize na ang buhay pala, hindi lang lahat, hindi mo kailangan lahat nandun sa taas. You could be right in the middle or down there. You feel that you are contented and happy. So ang ginawa ko, I decided to resign. That's my second resignation. Tapos sabi ng boss ko, oh my God, Morse, you're going nuts. Everybody is killing for a job in the UN and you're running away. Tapos sabi ko, yes. And then sabi niya, tell me, what's wrong? What's happening? Sabi ko, fall in love. And I think at this point, it's the right thing to do. Fall in love is the right thing to do. That's sinabi ko sa boss ko. And then sabi niya, well, you know what? If your life is, yung foundation ng life was love, you can go anywhere in the world. So don't worry. So akala ko noon, I will be burning bridges, basically. Pero sabi ng boss ko, Morse, if you are really sure about this, go for it. And I can tell you, what happened? I resigned on a Friday. I got another job on a Monday, still in Geneva. But that's another story to tell. Maybe I can tell later on this one when we talk about career. Two worst decisions, I thought, but in fact, in the end, that's where I drew the most important lessons in my career. I will tell you what happened yesterday. Because that was the last day being, on a daily situation. So yesterday I received a call from a colleague. She is the assistant of the Special Rapporteur on Minorities. In OHHR, I'm coordinating the two most important and most comprehensive training programs for minority rights defenders and Indigenous Peoples rights defenders. These are the OHHR Indigenous Peoples and Minorities Fellowship Program. And yung mga fellows namin, these are human rights defenders working in their own organizations, in their own communities, defending the rights of their people. And normally the objective is, we bring them in Geneva for between a month to 3 months, and they get to learn about the UN human rights mechanisms, including the most important standards, human rights standards on minorities and Indigenous people, so that then by the end of the fellowship program, they go back home and better promote and protect the rights of their people or their communities. So ang nangyayari by the end of the day, pagdating kasi sa human rights violation, it's a violations committed by the state. So automatic sila ang nagmo-monitor sa mga violations regulations ng gobyerno nila. And in the end, karamihan sa kanila, they end up at the other end of the spectrum. So, katulad sa Pilipinas, they've been harassed, threatened, tagged as a terrorist. The whole spectrum kung ano nangyari sa Pilipinas, exactly this is what's happening in many parts of the world. So, as a human rights officer, I deal with two thematic subjects that are very politicized: Indigenous peoples and minorities. There are minorities in every single country in the world. Indigenous peoples, you can find them in 90 countries. But despite the fact na napakaliit ang population ng IPs, we only have about 5% of the world population. But they represent 15% of the world extreme poverty. So you can imagine that. So ang buhay ko as a human rights officer, it ranges from writing communications, from a simple email, all the way to trying to get an audience with the president or the Ministry of Justice or the National Commission for Human Rights somewhere in the world, to basically calling specific detained person or sending an email to our network human rights organization that are much more proactive than the UN. I can tell you, hindi ganun kabilis ang UN. Kasi the way we operate, we are dependent on information from the outside. Tapos hindi kami basta-basta pupunta sa ibang bansa dahil we need to ask permission to go anywhere we go. Although we have a UN passport, pagdating sa aming trabaho, hindi kami basta-basta pumapasok and start investigating. Hindi kami pulis eh. So, kung minsan nagugulat ka rin kasi may ibang tao, sobrang criticism nila sa organization. It's the same, in the Commission on Human Rights in the Philippines. What are you doing in Mindanao? What are you doing here? Pero hindi nila intindihan yung mandate ng organization and the way we operate. So, yun yung daily life ko. And then, of course, I give also trainings. We provide legal advice. Kung minsan, para kang nanay, tatay ng mga colleagues and our partners. It's not only exciting. I think ito na nga yung definition ko ng when I was in UPLB, if I'm going to build a career, if I'm going to do something of my life, I would like to do it bigger than myself. I would like to work on something that is bigger than myself. Ito na siya. So dream job ko to. So para sa akin, it's not even a job. I told my boss, sabi ko sa kanya, you don't even have to pay me to do this job. I'll do it. Kasi unang-una, naniniwala ko sa trabaho ko. Yun, napaka-importante yun. Kaya again, sa mga young professionals natin, those of you who are listening to this conversation, if you want to build a career where unang-una, naniniwala ka sa ginagawa mo. And the rest is secondary. Perks ng trabaho mo, yung career prospect mo, they will come naturally as long as unang-una, naniniwala sa trabaho mo. Pag naniniwala ka, at the end, mamahalin mong trabaho mo eh. At the same time, tao din naman tayo. At the end of 8 hours of work, as in talagang madidrain ka rin. So actually, ang third na point ko sa inyo, you need to find a very good source of motivation in whatever phase that would be. Yan sa akin, ang other source of motivation ko is I'm very committed and very engaged in our Filipino community sa Switzerland. Besides my work, human rights officer, I am currently the president of our Filipino community, Ugnayan Bayan, Switzerland. Napaka-importante ito sa buhay ko kasi, and again, as a sociology major, doon ko na-realize na you could serve the world, but first you have to serve your community where you belong. Kasi yun yung source of identity mo eh. We are only 3 human rights officers sa buong mundo sa UN, and we are all from UP. So doon din ako nasabi ko, if I could serve my community, I also have to serve UP. So meron tayong UP Alumni Association sa Geneva, and I'm also currently in the leadership of that organization. So ang ginagawa ko naman, kung ano yung skills and knowledge na nag-gain ko sa work ko, I also need to have to transfer that immediately to my immediate community. And it's our Filipino community. 80% of our Filipino community sa Geneva, sa Switzerland, they are undocumented. They are domestic workers. They're mainly women. So there's an angle of gender. Tapos, pangalawa, dahil wala silang papel, they are very scared to access social services. So in this time of the pandemic, for example, nagka-COVID na sila at lahat, ayaw nila magpa-test dahil natatakot sila na pag pumunta sila sa isang hospital, baka dakipin sila ng pulis. So ang ginagawa namin within the community is to raise awareness na sa Switzerland, undocumented or not, you have the right to access to healthcare. Yun ang unang-una. Human rights approach dapat ang gawin na. Pangalawa, kahit wala kang papel, meron ka pa rin karapatang pantao. Kriminal nga may karapatan eh. It takes a lot of awareness raising din talaga. Kasi karamihan sa mga kababayan din natin dito, some of them, they've left their families in the Philippines 30 years, 20 years ago. It's a different generation of Pinoy. Pero we are getting there. Kasi meron tayong second generation eh. So again, yung second generation, ito yung mga kabatang Pinoy na pinanganak na sa Swiss or they were taken from the Philippines by their parents. Dito na sila lumaki. So iba din yung nila, yung identity crisis nila. So again, we have to develop other initiatives, to tackle that need. So ganun yun. So yes. Pag nagdesisyon ako or nagpaplano ako for that matter, I immediately put myself at the end. Kung ano yung result nyo, how is the result of this decision to me? Importante yun kasi dun mo magagamit yung sarili mo as reflection sa ibang tao. Kung yung decision ko ay hindi maganda sa pakiramdam ko, I shouldn't. Kasi personally, hindi ka na naniniwala eh. Why involve others? Why put others in the same situation? Pangalawa, result. When you take decisions, ang una kong ginagawa, I go back to the most possible result and evaluate ko yan. Kapaki-pakinabang ba yan? Hindi lang sa akin. Sa lahat ng stakeholders na either may direct or indirect impact dun sa decision ko. Whether this is on my job, mga partners namin, or kahit sino man. It could be the next generation. Sometimes we take decisions now, the result and the impact are not apparent. But then suddenly, within 5 years, biglang, wow, who decided this? Kasi legacy mo yan pag nag-decide ka. Legacy mo yun eh. History will come back to you and haunt you. Kaya I like yung sociology part. It's happening now. Kaya doon ako na-fascinate sa history later on. Kasi after 5 years, 10 years, babalikan ka ng kasaysayan. So sabihin, what did you do? What were you thinking? You not? So yun. So ang ginagawa ko, ganitong approach ko dyan, when I decide things, when I plan, I don't do this ladderized na step 1, step 2, step. No. I immediately go to the result and then I look back, I backtrack. Ganun ako magplano. So sabi ko, inassume ko na like, for example, when I apply for a job, for example, and I don't apply for a job, like, kasi kung minsan yung mga tao, kung mag-apply, parang pag may nakita sila, ay, apply ako dyan. Ako, pag strategic ako dyan. Mag-apply lang ako sa trabaho. Kung talagang pag binasa mo yung isang job call for application, yung biglang kinabahan ka, there's this gut feeling na, oh my God, this is my job. Ganun yun. Hindi ako agad-agad mag-apply. Ang una kong ginagawa, I research everything about this job, everything about this organization, and the most important, sino-sino ang nandyan sa organization na yan. And if I could find a way to talk with the person leaving the job or the people around that person, I will do it. I would like to go to that experience na, kasi hindi ko alam eh. Mahirap ang second guessing. So in as much as you can, you really try to simulate to what extent doon mo malalaman kung yung certain decision mo ay magkakaroon ng impact. Hindi lang sa'yo, sa ibang tao din. So, ang ginagawa ko, I assume already this is the result of my decision. Then what? You can try to imagine. Ang goal mo ay pupunta ka doon 1 kilometro, parang ang layo. Tapos titingala ka pang ganyan. Parang hindi mo makikita yung pupuntahan mo. Kakaiba lumingon ka eh. Pag lumingon ka, makikita mo yung kung saan ka pupunta. Yun ang una kong ginagawa. I-assume ko, ito na yung resulta ng decision ko. Then, doon mo na ilalagay yung mga elements and steps kung paano na yung decision mo ngayon ay ganun nga ang mangyayari doon sa resulta niya. Ang problema kasi alam mo yung linear na pagde-decision, ilalagay mo yung elements mo, parang naglalagay ka ng release ng trend at doon dadaan yung trend. Hindi mo alam kung hanggang kailan yung release mo. Samantalang pag nag-isip ka, this is the final station. Ito yung mga stasyon ng trend, na-laid out mo na yung plano. I ensure na yung plano ko, it goes all the way to the end. Result, impact. Kasi pag ganun ginagawa mo, mag-iisip ka rin what are the possible challenges ahead. As I have mentioned, in as much as I love the elements of surprise, I also take risk. Morse, take the risk. That's the only way you learn. But it has to have a calculated risk. Unang-una, I decided to take sociology. Kasi alam ko na, pag gusto kong mag-work sa UN, I better know the society. I should know the society where I come from. I need to know the people, within that society. I need to know, yung issues natin. I need to know kung ano yung hopes natin. You learn that in sociology. Pangalawa, I decided to move from sociology to history. For me, it was a natural course as well. Ang nangyari kasi sa akin, nung lumipat ako ng Diliman, sabi ko nga, sociology was my cognate. Graduating na ako ng sociology noon. I was inspired by a professor. Isa sa mga advice ko rin sa inyo, lalo na sa mga younger students natin, get a mentor. Get a mentor. And this mentor, no, this is not your friend. This is somebody who can provide you an insider's point of view of what is life, what is career, what's the world outside. Alam nyo, this is something that happened to me as well when I was in high school. Among your teachers, there will be one that would stand out and push you to your limit. But you look back and said, I'm glad I met that person. So I met a professor nung nasa Diliman ako. I was really inspired. And iba pag na-inspire ka you will do everything in your power to be almost like the same person. So ganun ang nangyari sa akin. And then in the end, I realized, oh my God, the combination of the two were just perfect. When you study history, napaka-importante saan tayo galing At doon mo ma-realize na kung ano yung ginagawa natin ngayon, yun ang kinabukasan natin. And history reminds that ako. So I combined the two. So that then when I was applying for jobs, the most important decisions I've taken as well is to ensure, sabi ko nga, I need to validate my learnings outside. And then my fourth na ginawa ko is I built a portfolio of expertise. Kung magiging generalist ka lang, you will not stand out. Kasi nakikita ko na I was high school. I was already looking yung mga job advertisements sa UN. This job is being advertised globally. So inassume ko na, okay, kung matatanggap kong trabaho to, sino ang most probable competitor ko? Buong mundo. So sabi ko, how am I going to stand out in that crowd? That's where I started learning languages. I speak English, French, Spanish, Japanese, and Filipino, and I'm learning Russian and Arabic now. And with my Japanese, I could read Chinese. Doon ko nakita na ito yung mga requirements na you could compete with anybody else in the world. Kasi as long as you are done, for example, on the minimum requirements, halos lahat kayo magkakaparehas ng background So ang una kong inisip, where can I stand out? Languages. So ang ginawa ko, when I decided to pursue further studies, I decided to go and study in countries I could learn a language. While earning a degree, I'm also learning a new language. Lahat ng mga foreign languages ko, that's where I pursued my further studies. I also put in my head na, and if I will go to these countries, I would like to ensure na itong mga bansa na to, we have either a historical or a current relationship based dun sa interest ko. And I mean Japan. I mean, I live in Japan for 6 years. And we have a historical ties with Japan. Not just history, but also we have a lot of Filipinos in Japan. So yung mga research ko, yung aking mga conferences, it was on Philippines and Japan relation. It was on Filipinos in Japan. So I was building all that folio right there and then. And it's the same when I went to study in Spain. It boils down to my studies of sociology and my studies of history. So it wasn't by accident at all. I was very deliberate. And again, this is a word that I would like you, those who are listening, you need to be deliberate in what you want in life. Kasi you need to build a brand, a personal brand. I don't know if you have heard about it, around yourself. Apple doesn't go out to the street and sell Apple. No. People queue up to get an Apple Watch or an Apple TV or an Apple cell phone. It should be the same for you. You need to build a name out of yourself. Na pag narinig nila, I don't have to explain to you. Ganun yun. It's the same thing with you. So, ulitin ko. Unang-una, you need to know what you want in life. Importante yan. Your core values mo, your identity mo. And I can tell you again, that's where yung sociology ko as a first decision in life for a career, that's for sure. And then yung second, when I decided to take up history, for me, I was looking for a complementary. And I realized that it wasn't economics, it wasn't political science, no, it was history. So again, I was so sure on this. Pangatlo, I have to make a portfolio out of this. I need to build an expertise out of this. Kasi kung walang expertise, hindi tayo pwedeng passion lang. No. Kasi kung passion ka lang, kung walang market sa passion mo, magugutom tayo, mga kapatid. So you have to find a way na yung passion mo na yan, ay pwede ka rin kumita. At dahil dyan, then you can build a family. You can build your community. Whichever community you belong. Dapat maabilidad din tayo. Dapat may skills tayo, may knowledge that we can market. I think the most important is the study of community is a study of human being. If you put human being as the center of your work, that's human rights. Doon ko nakita na ang karapatang pantao ay napaka-importante. In fact, it's the most important. Kasi what's the point of development if it's not for human beings? What's the point of international cooperation? What's the point of security? Kung ang una mong kung hindi mo isa-secure yung tao, we need to be people-centered in everything that we do. Whether it is in our personal relationship, in our organization, or in the communities we belong. For me, that's the most important message I would like to give it to anyone, especially those who would like to specialize in sociology. Put your heart and your mind with the people. Sabi nga ng lolo ko we have three most important things in the world. One, people. Second, people. Third, people. And UP has confirmed that to me, and sociology have done that to me as well. Sabi ko nga, unang-una, you really need to know who you are. Napaka-importante yan. You need to know who you are. You need to go dive inside you and say, what makes me happy by the end of the day? What makes you wake up and do what you love doing? What makes you angry when you saw things that is not working? Pag may nakita ka nangyayari sa labas, are you just be a passer na napadaan ka lang tapos alam mong somebody is being treated badly? Are you going to do something about it? Yung reaction mo sa mga pangyayaring yun, they're not just unconscious reactions, no? Kasi deep inside you, they've been built from within. You have to find that out. Para sa akin since the beginning, I can't compromise certain things in my life. You need to know to what extent ano mo pwede may compromise sa buhay. Again, that goes back to your core values. I can't, magiging kasangkapan ka lang. Hindi pa pwede yun. You need to be a part of decision making. You need to be a part of execution. You need to be a part of a planning. You need to be everywhere. But to be everywhere, dun mo rin ma-realize na you need to be strong as a person as well. Kasi otherwise, you could be easily blown away. In the international community, it's a very competitive community. And people, the first thing they do to you is to judge, put you in a box. Morse, he's an Asian, he's a Filipino, he should be like this. You learn that in sociology. Plus, I have a solid experience working with communities. Plus, I have worked in the field. Plus, I have worked at the headquarters. So yun yung mga, dun mo na lang malalaman na you can't really put people in a box. And it's not good to put people in a box. It's not just you going through those lessons learned, but you share the lessons learned to others. It's a part of being a community. Pangalawa, besides your core na magiging passion mo later on, you also need to test the water kung saan ka mag-stand out. For me, I knew na I would prefer to work at the headquarters. That is where the real action is. Nandun yung politics, ng international relations, in diplomacy and all that. You really get to feel na, oh my God, I'm a part of something bigger than myself. Kahit isa ka lang dun sa mga elements na yun, importante na yun, that's where you draw yung motivation mo. For example, I was just asked to give a briefing with students, on what's happening in Myanmar. And what's happening in Myanmar, the situation of ethnic minority, ethnic conflict are undercurrents, and now they're coming out, and it's a part of my job. So being able to share what you do and what you love doing is very important. And that is why, at some point, I would like to retire at 55 so that I can come back home in the Philippines and share everything that I learned in my whole career. And I'm not going to work for the UN until at the age of 60. At this point, ito na yung magiging trabaho nyo. You take over from us, the next generation of Pinoy. Palagi kong sinasabi when I give career guidance, your job is to take my job so I can go somewhere else. Otherwise, you're going to be stagnant. Hindi pa pwede yun. And then finally, siguro, you really have to build yung personal branding mo. It sounds very private sector, but we also need to learn from the private sector, those of us who are working in the public sector. And that's important. And I realized after having been in the UN for 15 years, you remember I resigned twice in my job. I didn't have to apply for other jobs. People have picked me because I have worked with them in the past and they know how I work. They know my skills, they know my knowledge, they know yung network ko, and they know how that I can deliver. It's the same. If you are using Apple, that Apple will deliver. It should be the same for you. By the end of the day, if you're going to build a career, managing people is the most important and it's the most challenging. Your work, it's not going to bark to you, but it's the people. They would react on your decisions. They would react on the way you handle people, and you need to be very ready in dealing with that. So learn to work with people. And if you are building a career in the UN, learn to work with people from different backgrounds. it only means that they don't understand sociology from the start. We breathe sociology. That by the day you get up, you eat sociology. That you start your breakfast and you go and sleep with the thinking in mind, what's going to happen tomorrow. Kasi may mga tao na katulad ko, I knew from the start na ang isa sa mga skills ko is to bring people together. I know that I'm happy when I'm surrounded with people. I also know that I'm happy when I'm out there talking with people, building communities with other people. Doon ko na-realize na isa sa mga pinaka-importanting values ko is to be with communities, to be with the people. Unfortunately, I guess fortunately for some others, for them, that's not the way they see themselves. They would rather be in front of a computer or on the telephone, and that's life for them. And it's fine. We also learned that in sociology that we have to play different roles in life, in society, and we need those people as well. So kung may magsasabi nan sa'yo na ganun nga ang sociology, sabi mo, yes, that's how society functions. And we learned that in sociology, that we have to play our different functions in society, in life, and that's important. The most important then by the end of the day is it's not even the course na pinag-aralan mo. It's actually what role are you going to play in society? And again, whether you are a forester or an engineer or a doctor, you are going to be dealing with sociology. So at the end of the day, sociology will be there for you, whether you like it or not. And of those of you who are smart enough, it's good for you to be there right from the start. So that's my last word.